Yeah, definitely. The theme for June in the Center for Spiritual Living is accountability. And the topic for today is aligning your values with your actions. Now, for our topics, we've been following the Center for Spiritual Living theme for the year of values-based spiritual living. And so all over the country, all over the world, centers are using the same topics that we're using often. Sometimes they change the names, though. And I want to thank my friend Reverend Tara Steele for sharing her thoughts with the ministers on this topic. Aligning your values with your actions. One of the definitions of align is to put things in the correct relative order. To align things like the blades of the fan are aligned just right. Otherwise we'd get noise and we wouldn't get good air. Another definition is to come together in agreement. To come together in agreement. So when we align our values and our actions, we put them in the correct order. We put them in a good relative order. We make them aligned. We make them go together in the right way, and we absolutely make them agree. Values and actions. Now, when I first heard this topic, aligning your values with your actions, I thought, this is backwards. Don't we want to align our actions with our values? Because that's what we often talk about. But if we look at it a different way, aligning our values with our actions gives us a chance to ask some questions. One of those questions is, what values are our actions embodying? When we act the way we do, whatever it is we do, what values do we show those around us? What values do we put out into the world? So as we look at our actions, what values do we see? Because, sometimes what we believe we value or what we say we value isn't what actually shows up in our lives. It reminds me of Emerson's quote, "What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say." What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say, because they don't always match. And Ralph Waldo Trine, an early New Thought writer, wrote this: "By example and not by precept, by living, not by preaching, by doing, not by professing, by living the life, not by dogmatizing as to how it should be lived, there is no contagion equal to the contagion of life." So when I think about aligning our actions with our values, I think about the phrase, "put your money where your mouth is." Because there, our mouth, of course, is what we say, and our money is our actions. So put your money where your mouth is. And if we turn that around to make it putting our actions with our home, it's put your mouth where your money is. Now, what that can mean is being really honest about what our actions are and what values they are embodying. So putting our mouth where our money is, it's like, okay, telling the truth about what's true about our finances, how we spend our time, how we spend our energy, what we do with our lives. And so that's kind of what we're going to talk a little bit about today. Because what our checkbooks and our calendars and how we spend our energy show is what we value. Absolutely. That's where the rubber hits the road. And if how you're spending your money doesn't accurately reflect your values, why not be honest about it? I mean, there's no rule that says anybody has to do things particular ways. If you value having your credit card paid off at the end of every month, and yet when you look at your statement, you found that you've used money in your card in ways that don't allow you to pay it off, why not be honest about it? I mean, we can certainly just not look at the statement and be oblivious to where our hard-earned dollars are going. But it's that kind of thing. Because if we want to change anything, we have to know what we're doing first. In order to change something, we have to know where we're starting from. And in order to know where we're starting from, it really helps to be present, fully present in each moment. To know what it is we're feeling, to know what it is we're thinking, to look at what it is that's happening around us. Because we can't effectively change what we're doing until and unless we know what we're doing. If, for example, you value following your inner guidance, I mean, we talk about inner guidance around here. If you value that, and yet you find that you're not following your inner guidance, that you're thinking, oh, that's too hard, or, well, that's not logical, or that's not what everybody else is doing, or that's too risky, then it might be time to look at the values that are behind that. Because maybe your value isn't that you really want to listen and follow what's the guidance that you're given. Maybe your value is that you want to play it safe. There are no right or wrong values. Maybe your value is that you want to be accepted no matter what, and that you'd rather go with the flow, go with what other people are doing than actually listen to what's inside. And if your value is keeping the flow of abundance and gratitude flowing through your life, if your value is to do that, say, by contributing, by tithing, which doesn't always have to be 10%, and you find that you're not doing that, you might want to look at what value is there. Now, I'm not saying there are any right values or any wrong values, but to be honest with ourselves, we need to know what it is we're doing and why we're doing it. Because it's difficult to know what comes first, the values or the actions. Because there isn't like only one action that can come from a particular value. I mean, if we want to serve in the world, there are zillions of choices of how we can do that. And there isn't only one way to have that show up. So how can we align our values and our actions? Well, first we have to know what our values are. First we have to know what our values are. And it can really be helpful to write those things. Well, thank you. You can tell that I was just about to reach down and get my glass of water. Isn't water a wonderful thing? I value water. So it can be helpful in knowing what our values are, in learning what our values are, and to stay connected with them, to actually write them down. To answer questions like, what's really important to me? What do I value so much that I really want my actions to be in alignment with it? What do I value so much that I want to make sure that I act on that every day, every week, however often it's appropriate to? Because I think we all know that that there are folks who say that, oh, I really value time with my family, but they don't spend it. They work 90 hours a week. And so their actions are really not in alignment with that. So if we start to write down our values, well, we will write things like family, we'll write things like maintaining our health, we'll write spiritual growth, we'll write lots of other things. And what we get to do then is look at our actions and see if we're following through. To actually look at our actions and see if our actions are matching our values. If you say that you want to spend time with your family, if that's a high value, then are you doing it? Are you sitting down for meals? Or are you spending quality time listening without the TV, without the computer, without the phone? How about date night or family game night or family movie night? I mean, those are the things that some of the things, just some, of course, that can really show that we're taking action on that value of spending family time together. And if you say that one of your values is maintaining your health by exercising, it's a good idea to look and see if you're actually doing it. Yeah, you know, I have heard so many people say, well, in talking about that, talking about exercise, well, how often do you exercise? Well, I try to exercise 3 times a week. You know, I try to exercise 3. How many times do you exercise? Well, maybe next week. You know, maybe next week. Haven't gotten quite around to it this week. If you say that if one of your values is spiritual growth and spiritual connection, if you know that for you that happens through prayer and meditation, then it's a great idea to look and see if you're giving yourself that time for prayer and quiet and contemplation and meditation on a regular basis. Because our values are the things that are most important to our life. And they're the real priorities. Ideally, they determine our choices, and, you know, I think our values are what we use to measure how well our life is working. How well our life is working. Because if our actions are in congruence with our values, then, you know, life's pretty good. We're pretty comfortable, things seem to work and flow, and if our actions are not in congruence with our values, things can feel kind of glitchy, not so smooth. And that's when we have the chance to take a look at whether or not we are in alignment. It's also really important to deeply inquire as to whether the values that we are living by or trying to live by are really authentically our values. Now, I don't know about any of you, but as I was growing up, I picked up some values from church and family and the news and school that were not really my values. And so it behooves us to take a look at our values and to see if they are authentically ours or if we have just taken values that somebody else has put upon us. Ernest Holmes said this: "The criterion for any person as to what is right or wrong for them is not to be found in some other person's judgment. The criterion is, does this thing I wish to do express more life, more happiness, more peace to myself, and at the same time harm no one? If it does, it is right." So it's always a good thing for us to look and see if our outer world is in alignment with our inner world. Because sometimes people set goals for themselves, they have values that they never quite get around to doing anything with. And we want to avoid that. And as we move through our life, our values change. I mean, when you're first starting out on a career, For some of you, that was a couple of years ago. We value success, and that may be in the form of status or money. But then when family comes along, oftentimes values change to balancing that work time and family time, because both are really, really important. And it's important for us to stay in touch, to keep looking at our values, not just assuming that they are what they were 20 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 3 years ago. Because as we shift, as we're in different stages of life, we definitely have different values, and it behooves us to pay attention to that. By keeping in touch with our values, we can make sure that we're in alignment, and our lives work a whole lot better. Because your personal values are an important part of who you are and of who you want to become. By becoming more aware of these factors in your life, you can make the best choices in any situation. So if there happens to be some area of your life where it feels like your values and your actions are not in alignment, what can you do? Well, of course, because we're here at the Center for Spiritual Living, we know that we can use prayer, and we know that we can use affirmations, but also we can make small corrections. If we notice that we're out of alignment, we can just figure out what would be the next best thing that I could do that would take me a little bit closer to feeling like I'm living my values. What's the next thing, the next little step that I take? It's kind of like an airline pilot. If their flight plan changes and they need to go to a different city, they don't just make a great big turn. They turn a little bit at a time, a course correction, a course correction, a course correction. And eventually they end up exactly where it is they want to go. Here's another quote from our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes. The way to work is to begin right where we are, and through constantly applying ourselves to the truth, we gradually increase in wisdom and understanding. For in this way alone will good results be obtained. If day by day we have a greater understanding and a clearer concept, if daily we are realizing more of truth and applying it in our actions, then we are on the right path, and eventually we will be made free. And another thing you can do is you can experiment. Experiment with bringing your values into your actions. Now, what you might do is you might choose a value and say, okay, today I'm going to take this value into everything that I do. You might want to choose compassion. And if you were to choose compassion, it may mean that you would have extra compassion for the other drivers on the road. It may mean that you would feel more compassion and connection with those who hold different political views or different religious views. Or maybe having more compassion for coworkers or family members who act in unskillful ways. And certainly you would want to also have more compassion for yourself if you say or do something that you wish you hadn't said or done. So that's one way to kind of bring something in. What's another value that we might want to take through our day? Somebody speak up. Okay, joy. If we wanted to take joy into our day.
Keeping it's important for me to drive as little as I possibly can. To combine errands and keep my carbon footprint
Okay, great. And so with that value, you can be aware of that in everything you do. You can be aware of course, when you go to the store and you take your own bags and if possible, walk or take your bike. I mean, to be aware of that, to take that value in and to appreciate other people who are displaying that value as well. So that's it. We can experiment with that and see how it works. See how it works to just take our values into our actions. Our thoughts and our values and our actions and our beliefs are all creative, of course. And we can choose to align our values and our actions. We can absolutely set the intention to be more aware of when we are in alignment and when we may not be. And then we can make those course corrections. Because, we are divine beings. We are made of good stuff. And that divine essence, that divine goodness can flow through us when we recognize it and when we decide to align with it, when we let it flow in through and as us. So I invite you this week to notice, to simply notice your values and your actions. Notice when they match and notice when they don't match. And when they match, celebrate. Celebrate the good stuff always, whatever it is. And when there is not quite that alignment, make small course corrections, a step at a time, just a bit at a time, and pretty soon you will find yourself in alignment. And take the challenge to experiment with bringing a value into your life each day, or for a week, or for a month, or whatever. Seeing how many ways you can bring that into your experience, how many ways you can express that value. So there's an affirmation on the screen. My values and my actions express the truth of who I am. All is well. Say that with me. My values and my actions express the truth of who I am. All is well. Once more. My values and my actions express the truth of who I am. All is well. And as practitioners stand with me in high consciousness, let's just take that into prayer. I'm so grateful that we have a teaching that teaches that we can take our values, that we can take our actions, that we can move them out into the world as love, as joy, as compassion, that we can make a difference. But what I know is that there is one power, one intelligence, one source of absolutely everything. It is around us. It is in us. It is for us. It lives as us. And so we are absolutely, each one of us, connected to the infinite possibilities, connected to the infinite opportunities, connected to the infinite intelligence, connected to the infinite abundance and prosperity, connected to each other through this one thing that goes by many names that I call God. And so knowing that this is who we are, what I claim is that as each of us goes forward, we go forward in joy. We go forward being reminded by the universe, being reminded in delightful and obvious ways of when we have the opportunity to move into greater alignment with our values. Being reminded, having things just pop up on our path that say, ah, yes, you are so in alignment right now. You are so living your values and blessing the world by it. And so I claim that we are open. I claim that there is nothing that can restrict the flow of information to us from the divine, so that we know all we need to know to make the choices we need to make, to live lives that are absolutely wondrous, happy, healthy, joyful. And so I'm so grateful that we have this part of God that we know about, this part that makes things so when we believe them, when we speak words with power, when we know that it is our truth. And so I just release these words into that all-powerful law that has all the stuff and all the know-how, all the resources and all the intelligence to bring forth everything I have spoken, and so much more on behalf of each one of us. And so we let it go. We let it be. It's good and very good. And so it is. I forgot to do this earlier to introduce Jim Babcock, and who is on platform with me. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Jim. And Lori Lee, who is holding consciousness for us. She's been holding us in prayer. And that is a sacred, sacred gift. Thank you.